So rather than calling them or describing them as maps of a particular person or a particular side, let's just call them 1 and 2. Got it, Dustin? All right. And we both submitted data and maps yesterday. Unfortunately, Dustin didn't get the map until this morning, a couple of hours ago, but we both studied the maps and the data, and the purpose of today's meeting is for each side to present their map and their data. And the way we're going to do it is you will present first, Dustin, and there won't be any questions. We're not going to interrupt you. You do a presentation. Please use the microphone if you would, so that everyone can hear it.
We're going to do it in the PowerPoint.
Yes, so you can take it off. I need the microphone for the
Perfect. Thank you.
And then, so anyway, let me finish this. We're going to each do a presentation, no questions during the presentation. You have the floor. Then there'll be an opportunity for questions. And then I'll present our map and the reasons for where the lines have been drawn. And then I'll take questions. And that'll be it. That's all that's on the agenda. So let's try to keep this orderly. I think we will be able to. Let's not talk over each other. And when someone asks a question, let them ask a question, and then we'll give you an opportunity to respond. And we'll try to get through this in an orderly, reasonable way. All right? The floor is yours, President.
Sharon and I are the authors of draft 1 of this map. We're going to try to tag team this PowerPoint presentation. We put this together to further explain our process, how we got to where we are, and what we feel is the benefits of this of draft 1, especially as opposed to the current plan. We didn't have, as Chairman Hulslander said, we didn't have Republican maps until this morning at 8:30, so we're not going to compare and contrast to that. We did get data about 8 o'clock last night, but we still have to digest that. So we're going to start with you, Sharon.
Thank you. This is what we put together in the past 14 days, nights and weekends, tucking it in when we could. So I hope you like it. So why do we need brand new maps? The 2011 redistricted maps divided our community. The city of Syracuse was carved into 9 districts. The towns of DeWitt, Manlius, Geddes, and Clay have 3 different districts. These unrecognizable shapes cut through communities. Citizens no longer understood who represented their neighborhood. And this caused less competition and outsized power for the political minority. Anger and resentment over this division has been percolating for decades. We do have challenges in our county. We have a full range of population density. We have Selma's there. That shows 1 dot per 10 people. This gives you an idea of our starting point when we try to puzzle through what makes a sensible distance. The city of Syracuse has the highest population density, and the suburbs in the north have grown in population and outpaced other suburbs. There's been significant concentration of population in the eastern and western suburbs. And rural areas, though they're large in geography, have shrunk in population. This range of population densities does make it difficult to create districts. And then this is a table showing partisan enrollment over time, and it shows you that the demographics of our county have drastically changed over the past 10 years. And fair districts will reflect the registration disparity in our county. The only way to not reflect the democratic plurality of the county would be through extreme gerrymandering.
So these are our solutions that we came up with to finish, to try to come up with a draft map and actually make changes that will be beneficial for the community. First, we were going to draw districts as close to the population average of approximately 28,000 residents to allow for growth over the next 10 years. If we had a wide disparity from 26,500, I think it was, to 29,500, you would have districts that would grow in out of proportion with others over the next 10 years and be out of balance. We also wanted to make new districts that respect natural borders, such as town and ward lines, when possible. Respecting town and ward lines will also keep communities of interest together. These are natural boundaries that keep communities together. We end the unnecessary carving of the city of Syracuse to allow for representation of city residents on the county legislature. We're keeping the towns as whole as possible, which will allow for a single representative to voice their concerns. We keep the villages in the same legislative district rather than dividing them, as has been done with North Syracuse and Baldwinsville in the old map. We reduce the number of different governments the legislature represents, allowing them to focus on the needs of that community and be their advocate. And we keep districts compact and contiguous as possible. We draw districts that promote competition. And we ignore incumbency as the elections have not yet occurred. So this is what our fair maps believe we can look like. We already have seen here from the comparison with the old map that the new map that we are proposing makes more sense to the average person of what their community is and who represents their community than this jumbled mess here at the center of our city in our current, and also the surrounding suburbs of our current map. So fair maps start with the city of Syracuse. The city of Syracuse has 148,000 population. That's approximately, that means 5 districts can wholly fit inside the city of Syracuse borders, with a small 6th portion paired with a nearby town. Creating a north side district, which is this one right here, will allow for representation of Syracuse's growing new American community. All districts inside the city of Syracuse will have a better chance of minority representation on the county legislature. And Syracuse residents have only made up 3 of the county legislative seats for most of the last 10 years. I think 9 out of the last 10 years. City residents have made up 3 of the county legislative seats. We deserve, the city of Syracuse deserves, equal representation in the county legislature, and having districts that are wholly inside the borders of the city of Syracuse, as was done, well, it was kind of done 10 years ago, will allow the city of Syracuse to have better representation on this county legislature. These are the northwestern suburbs. We're going to go around in about 4 different sections here to do the outskirts. Districts 1, 2, 8, and 13 make up the northwest portion of our map. District 1 includes the town of Van Buren and a portion of the town of Lysander. This keeps the village of Baldwinsville intact and keeps this in a relatively contiguous shape and with like-minded communities in Van Buren and Lysander together. District 2 makes up portions of Clay and Lysander. Lysander has grown quite a bit over the last few years and is growing at a 6% rate, making sure that the town of Lysander has the ability to continue to grow and not put their district out of whack over the next 10 years. It's one of the reasons why we created this district. This is what we kind of call the Central River District. and it accounts for a large population of clay and a growing population of limestone. Again, I think the people in this district understand that this is a community of like interests, similar incomes, similar housing, similar needs. District 8 makes up Geddes. We felt that one of the worst things that the old maps does is to break up the town of Geddes into 3 districts. We keep Geddes whole, all together, and it goes into Tip Hill, the 7th and 8th ward in the city of Syracuse. These are like-minded communities that have a lot of crossing over and people moving from over the border into Solvay from Tip Hill and so on and so forth. We believe this district better represents Geddes and better represents the Tip Hill portion of Syracuse. And then finally, we put District 13 together, Elbridge, and most of the town of Camillus. There's a couple of EVs of Camillus that go into the Geddes district. They're on right on the border, again, like-minded communities to get to the 28,000 mark. But keeping Camillus mostly together in one contiguous district, along with Elbridge, puts like-minded communities that go down the Route 5 corridor that are neighbors and people who have common interests. The northeastern part of Onondaga County are districts 3, 4, 5, and 14. I notice on our maps we actually kind of agree on District 3, which is almost equal, where we finally put Cicero in one district. Now Cicero has more than 28,000 residents, so we have to have at least 2. So we carved out a portion of the North Syracuse, and we'll get to that in a second. District 14 is almost the same as District 14 now, except it moves over into the Liverpool area of play, keeping away from North Syracuse so we can create a North Syracuse district. Again, 28,000 people about in that district in 14, and allows for a very large town that is growing to continue to grow and not get out of line. This is one of our districts that we are most proud of. This is the North Syracuse district. It brings North Syracuse, Manningdale, and the northern part of DeWitt together outside of East Syracuse. And it doesn't go down to East Syracuse. This district changes the crab. The current 5th district, which looks like a crab, that is in 3 different towns. This one, though in 3 different towns, they are all neighbors that share a similar lifestyle in a similar community, and the village of North Syracuse is put into a single district. I went ahead and slide, I have to go ahead. That's our northeastern part of Onondaga County. This is the eastern suburbs. Did you want to do this one, Sharon? Or you want me to do it? Okay. The eastern suburbs make up mainly the towns of DeWitt and Manlius. District 7 and 10 make up the eastern suburbs portion of our map. The eastern suburbs were the most mistreated by the 2011 map, with DeWitt having 4 different legislators and Manlius 3. We now make District 10 one contiguous district, finishing off going down to the border of Manlius, keeping the villages of Manlius and Fayetteville, which are the hearts of the town of Manlius, together in the Manlius district, which makes up about 80% of the town of Manlius. The DeWitt district starts in Jamesville and moves up into Manoa, giving the village of Manoa and East Syracuse together. This makes sense. The East Syracuse-Manoa School District is a school district, and these are people that share common interests. That is why this district moves up. And though DeWitt has about 26,000 residents, we were unable, because of the population shifts of our county, to actually be able to put them all in a contiguous district, much like Leipzig. We felt that was important because we had one blue town that was carved up into more than one district if they had less than 28,000, and one red town as well. And this is our southern portion of Onondaga County. We took Onondaga and Marcellus and put them together. They share the 173 corridor. Many people move over and across the border of Marcellus and Onondaga, and I can tell you having lived out here, that these are like-minded communities. In fact, I lived right over on Cherry Valley Turnpike, which is right on the corner of Skinny Atlas and Marcellus. And then we have the rural district, the 12th district, where we take the Onondaga Indian territory. This is the only time we've divided an ED, but this is a census tract of its own, and we confirmed that. We did all the county planning before we did it, and moved it into the 12th district, keeping Nedrow in the Onondaga Township, not so we didn't needlessly divide Onondaga. Onondaga Indian Nation territory is a weird territory. It actually goes in between the town. It's already broken up itself. It's actually on both Lafayette land and Onondaga land for the towns. But their residents go to Lafayette High School, and so they have a common interest with Lafayette. Now, I'll understand that some will say Skinny Atlas is not the same as the rest of the district. I'm a graduate of Skinny Atlas, 1990. I can tell you there's a lot of farmland in this lower part of Skinny Atlas that has a lot of similar concerns as the rest of the agrarian towns. Also, the village of Skinny Atlas, yes, is in there, but we have to get 28,000 somehow. And I do notice that the Republican maps has the village of Manlius in there. So they agree that sometimes we have to put a village into another district. We just disagree on which village. I forgot to go ahead and slide. I'm not very good at this sometimes. But I have paper copies of the slides as well. We believe having District 12 uniting the lower half and the rural agrarian towns of our county will give them a bigger voice as a similar community all together. This approach also creates a more competition and is fair for all parties. In this map, only 2 towns, Lysander and DeWitt, under 28,000 voters, are divided amongst different legislators compared with 6 towns that were carved up in the old map. In this map, 9 legislators are wholly included in one town or city, as opposed to 5 in the old maps. The city of Syracuse has 5 representatives wholly inside the city, as opposed to 9 districts chewing up portions, diluting their representation. The map creates more toss-up districts within the 5% registration margin, from 4 to 6. So in the old map, there was only 4 districts that have a 5% leaning Democrat to 5% leaning Republican, which I consider as a toss-up. In this one, it creates 6 toss-up districts. The county has trended toward the Democrats, but the districts are more competitive, and each side will have a chance to win the majority. And though we did not look at incumbency, the map does pair 2 Republican city legislators, Knapp and Abbott, and 2 Democratic city legislators, Kuhn and Erb. We felt that that was fair, and we didn't look at it as we were drawing, but we did look at it afterwards, and we were pleased to find that it treated both sides equally. And that is our presentation. Do we take questions now, Kevin, or would we wait till after yours?
Oh, no, let's do some questions.
I'd love some questions.
I'm not going to talk about the old map because I have nothing to do with it, and it wouldn't be fair for me to talk about it. But I'm going to talk about some of the differences between the 2 proposed maps.
Sure.
And would you agree, Dustin, that both proposals are essentially the same for Cicero? Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, I agree with that.
Would you also agree that both proposals have 6 legislators assigned to the city of Syracuse?
With a caveat, I'll agree with
True.
that. Because, what?
Isn't that true, Dustin?
This isn't court of law, Mr. Hulslander.
I'm just asking you. It's incredible.
There are 6. However, the difference is, in those 6, are that your 6 legislators have portions of the city of Syracuse in 3, and portions of nearby towns in 3.
Oh,
They are not wholly inside.
Would you
And I
agree?
feel that that is a problem with the old map and a problem with your map.
Would you agree that we both have 6 legislators
With the caveat that I have stated.
in the city of Syracuse? Okay.
With the caveat I have stated. yes.
Agreed? would you also agree that both proposals keep villages intact?
Yes.
And would you also agree that both proposals have 2 legislative districts for the town managers?
Yes. But with the town of Manlius, I will note that he decided to go north and take portions out of the existing district and move it south into the 12th district, taking the village of Manlius out of the town of Manlius.
Yeah, let's talk about your proposed map, all right?
Okay.
Can you put up the I think you called it the eastern suburbs?
Sure. You find the mouse. Here it is. Okay. Slideshow. There we go.
Yeah, Dustin, I think you said to the people here that Janesville runs into Manoa. You remember saying that?
Yeah.
All right. That's not true, is it, Dustin?
That's not what I said.
That's not
I
true.
said
is
this,
it?
I said this district
It
goes
doesn't
from Janesville
run-
into Manoa.
And you see what
And I have a
you did
slide here
You
that
see what you
explains
did to the people in Manoa, Dustin, by drawing the line that way?
Yeah.
You see what you did to the people of Manoa?
I did.
What you did was disenfranchise the people that
Mr.
live in
Hulslander, I
the
thought you said
area of
that people
Manoa.
would be civil to each other.
Isn't that true?
Do you have to write your finger at me?
Isn't that true, Dustin?
But this is what I said. And this is my exact word. This man American confirmed.
The waves.
I said the district runs from Janesville into Manoa. I also said that the villages of East Syracuse and Manoa share a common school district, which you would agree is true, Mr. Hulslander, right? Or do you know that? The East Syracuse Manoa School District, have you heard of it?
I live over near there.
Good, so you know.
I can tell you right now, Janesville does not run into Manoa.
I didn't say it ran into Manoa.
And I
said
can also
this
tell you
district-
that
I said
Manoa is very different
Are
than
you
East
really going to
Syracuse.
hang your head
It has
on
nothing to do
this?
with the school
I
district.
will explain it to you again.
I'm listening.
Janesville, in this district runs from Janesville into Manoa. To get 28,000 residents, well, sir, let's take a look at what you did to
No,
We'll take that for
I'll
what you
explain what I did. Why didn't we just draw a line from DeWitt over into Fayetteville? It's because I wanted to disenfranchise the
Because Fayetteville
voters.
and Manlius are together in the current district, I decided to keep those together.
Yeah.
And we drew the North Syracuse district, which took up part of the edge of the way, and we took this district and moved it all together. And our reasoning, whether you like it or not,
Oh, no, I'm
is
just asking
because,
you.
I thought you said you would let us finish.
She just asked me.
Okay, well, I'm going to explain it if you let me finish.
Well, I think you've explained it.
Well, I'll explain one more time. Is because the East Syracuse Manoa District, school district, unites this portion of this district.
All right. Can you bring up the map of the southern?
Sure. There it is.
Okay. Now, are you trying to tell people here that Skinny Alice is like Lafayette? Is that what you're trying to tell people?
I'm trying to let them know. This is
Yes
what
or
I-
no?
This round.
I'm just
Could you act in a reasonable manner?
Look, I'll jump in. You know, obviously part of that's my district now. You know, my family's lived there for 200 years plus. I think I know the area pretty well. And the towns of Cisco, Spafford, and Skinny Alice have very, very, very different priorities.
They do share a school district.
Sure.
A school district, I
Wait a minute,
can
Justin.
No, that's fine,
Let
that's
Mr.
fine.
Knapp speak,
Oh,
and
we
then
have to
you
let you speak.
You interrupt him.
No, but anyway, you know, the school district lines run, you know, interestingly down there, again, to get the populations they need to make a school district. But, you know, the typical Spafford's getting up are very lake focused, very, very seasonal populations. At some point, you know, obviously in the summer, the populations are significant. You know, it's our water, both of those lakes are our water supply, for the county, and, you know, and again, most of that area is much of our food supply, but basically to take 40%, almost 40% of the towns in the entire county and give them one vote in the county legislature, you're disenfranchising the
You keep
rural
using the word
voters.
disenfranchising, I can't wait to use it for your map. But what I will tell you is that we have a thought process. Our
Yeah.
thought process is backed up by reality. The reality is, there is a school district that runs between Skinny Spafford and Otisco. I went to that school, I graduated from that.
And some of those Otiscos people also go to Tully, and some go to OCS.
And thus,
So it's all.
and that's why they are put together into a like-minded community.
Well, they're not going down in Daga, those folks, they go down in Daga, don't feel like.
Can't get everybody together as in every
Well,
community.
yeah.
But you asked for our reasoning, you asked for our reasoning,
We got it, no, we got it. I'm with you.
so, and I've given you our
Just
reasoning.
to say, I do like I recommended, that we put the Onondaga Nation in with the lot there as well.
We have an agreement with that.
That makes total sense.
Again, same reason, the school district. Again, this is a common, logical reasoning that we came up with.
So you're saying school districts are the basis, should be the basis of where you draw legislative maps?
You keep saying I'm saying, and
Is that what
that's
you're
not
saying?
what I said. I said school districts are one of the factors that we use to determine the logic of our maps.
And so you're saying East Syracuse is the same, has similar, is similar in quality and similar in characteristic to Minoa? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying they share a school district and
No,
all.
I'm saying obviously they do.
I would love to have more public hearings out there and get information from the citizens out
I
there.
mean, we're having public hearings. We've got
Yeah,
one tonight.
we're
We've
sharing.
got one tomorrow night. We've got one Friday.
And
We've
so
got public
far, the public hearings that we've had, Mr. Hulslander, that you did not attend.
I'm going to be here tonight.
Good. We're pretty unanimous in their opposition to what happened before in these districts, and have argued for similar type of decisions that we have made.
That's fine, but that's pure unadulterated, that map right there, pure unadulterated gerrymandering. That's what it is. That's what
Sure.
you're accusing, accused the Republicans of doing, that's what that is.
Yeah,
Outrageous.
I see your map, and we'll get to that in a second.
All right, does anyone else have any more questions? Good.
Can I see the Gaddis map?
Okay. I think I have that. Yeah.
Okay, why did you break up and make Gaddis one area?
Well, we did break up, combine it into one area, yes.
From where it was before, now where's the village of Southwood in there?
Joe, turn that microphone on.
It's all wholly inside the district.
Michelle, can you turn your
Michelle, can you turn that on? Village of Salt Lake is wholly inside the, town of Gaddis, which is wholly inside the 8th district that we created. And it keeps a couple of districts here, that goes down Route 5 to Gaddis just to get to the 28,000 figure, but we believe that the people on both sides of the town line there are of similar communities and similar makeup.
I make a motion to be wholly within Pinellas.
Well, you didn't draw a map that way.
What's that?
Your map is not that. Your map has 3 different districts going into Pinellas. My map has, I think, 90% of the village, of the town of Pinellas into the town of Pinellas. So, Mr. Hulslander's map actually divides Pinellas a lot more than I do.
leave Salina with yes.
I didn't, you're right. I kept Salina as its own district. Because it is unfair to the citizens of Salina and the citizens of Lakeland to have a district that wraps around a lake, as in the old, well, let me go into the old map. This district, again, a sole tradition of the last redistricting, as the previous, the previous district had more, all of this inside Salina. This district was wholly a creation of the last redistricting, wrapping this district around the lake. I will note that your map wraps it even more. It comes down to Salt Lake, pairing Salt Lake and Liverpool together. So, like-minded communities, Mr. Hulslander,
That's
right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That is.
Minoa and East Syracuse, Minoa and East Syracuse are not like-minded communities, but Salt Lake and Liverpool are. And how do you explain that, Mr. Hulslander?
Absolutely. Of course it's like-minded communities. The Lake District is, I mean, think about it.
I have no
Lakeland,
I see it.
Galville, Liverpool, Solvay, those aren't like-minded communities. And who wouldn't say it? They're both old-time lake communities. They've been around forever.
So,
People that
they
have been around
were not in the same district.
It's absolutely true, and it's,
And
you're
do not
it's
share,
one- it's one election district.
do not
Right across
share,
the lake.
do not share a school district, do not share a town.
I'm not worried about school districts like you are.
I know you're
School
not.
districts don't do it. And that's not, no one
You're-
says it's
I know-
considered a school district.
I know what you're worried about, Mr. Hulslander.
No, I know what you're worried about.
I'm worried about keeping towns together.
No, I know what you're worried about. You showed it on a map. You're talking about Democrats and Republicans.
Mr.
It
Hall.
has nothing to do with Democrats and Republicans.
When you started this, you asked that we could keep this to have something to quote.
I'm like-
You have yelled, you have waved your finger, and you have interrupted me.
No, I haven't interrupted you. I just want you to answer my question.
I believe the video will show.
That's all.
I have answered the
All
question.
right. Does anyone else have any more questions for Dustin?
For sure. She was just as integral into this.
Sharon, you have a question for Dustin? Sharon?
Well, Sharon, you have a question for me?
We've had questions for 14 days straight, and this is how we came up with the answers.
That's good. All right, thank you very much, Dustin. There was, by the way, the presentation itself was a very nice presentation.
I'll take back compliments.
All right, good. Now, we didn't do a fancy PowerPoint or anything like that, but I think for the most part,
So we
the map
can't
that we
really easily
proposed,
see it.
speaks for itself. I mean, we are looking to balance the community, ensure that everyone has a voice, ensure that everyone has one vote, one person, one vote. And you need to really look at the numbers. We talked a little bit about the numbers at the last meeting, and so we have a census that shows that there's been 2% population growth, essentially, a little bit more in the city. And so, in looking at our new proposed map, you need to account for where the population growth was. What changed over the last 10 years? Fortunately, we did have some population growth. And we need to analyze where that growth was in order to determine where the legislative district should be. And it's very clear that the population growth, 63% was in Camillus, which increased at 4.88%. Clay, Lysander at 6%, and Van Buren at almost 9%. And because of that, you need to think about, we talked about it at the last meeting, but you really need to think about where the population centers have grown in comparison to 10 years ago. You need to think about how you need to accommodate for that growth in drawing the lines with respect to legislative districts, because you don't ever want to disenfranchise voters. You don't ever want to draw a line specifically that would not allows for 7 districts within those 4 towns. So in other words, we're looking specifically at where the growth is, and we're establishing 7 districts within those towns where the growth is to accommodate for the growth. And Dustin's map, although I'm not going to call it Dustin's map, I'm going to call it map number 1. Map number 1 only has 5 districts. So at the very core of what our job is here, I think map number 1 fails. Because in the first instance, we must look specifically to where the growth is. You can't ignore the data. It's not about Democrats. It's not about Republicans. It's specific to where growth is, because what prompts our job is the census, which occurs every 10 years, which came in late this year. But our job is essentially to consider the data in the census, which is specific to population growth, and then accommodate for that population growth. And we've done that by establishing 7 districts where the growth was, rather than 5 that map number 1 specifies. So that's one thing. The second point is very important as well. You know, everyone who lives in this county knows that Clay and Van Buren and Lysander, they're growing. That's where the growth is. And, you know, Clay itself could be a city, I think, based on its population. So, what did we do with respect to the growth in Clay? We assigned Clay 4 legislative districts with 4 representatives. Why? Because of the growth. Map number 1, what does it do? Only 3 representatives. So it doesn't accommodate for the true growth, which is what our job is here, to effectuate fair lines, fair districts based on growth. I mean, look at Clay. You've got Amazon, you've got all kinds of growth in Clay. It deserves 4 representatives in 4 districts, not 3. Now, as I mentioned to Dustin, you know, we do have some common ground here. We really do. We have common ground. We know that the 2 proposals are essentially the same as for Cicero, and Cicero is another growing community. We know that both maps have assigned 6 legislative districts to the city. So you have essentially 6 legislators with legislators representing the city. We believe that's important. We believe it's common ground. We also know that both maps keep the villages intact. Another important point with respect to communities and keeping communities together. And we also know that both proposed maps have 2 legislative districts for the town of Manlius. Now, you can guess more of what I'm going to talk about with respect to the differences in the maps, all right? Because I've already touched on a little bit of that when I was questioning Dustin. But we propose splitting Manlius at the village of Manlius, keeping it in the 12th district with communities like Pompey and Janesville. Dustin proposes putting Manoa in with DeWitt, running that district all the way to East Colvin Street. Now, to me, all you have to do is look at the map. You'll look at the map, and when you see what he did with respect to connecting what he called,
Sharon and I are equal authors of that map. I demand that you respect her.
Okay, I'm sorry. Dustin, I'm going to keep calling it map number 1, and you can remind me.
You haven't yet.
All right, I'm sorry. You don't want to take credit for the map, Dustin?
Oh, I am taking it.
All right, so with respect, all you have to do is look at map number 1, and it doesn't pass the eye test, number 1. Number 2, we know that Janesville doesn't run into Manoa, as he said during his presentation. We also know that school districts school districts don't necessarily connect communities. And he's continued to talk about school districts. But we also know that anyone who knows what's going on locally, we also know that, and I've lived here most of my life, we know that East Syracuse isn't like Manoa. And so we know that there must be some other reason for map number 1 to be jutting off into Manoa, connecting it to Janesville, when Janesville has no connection to Manoa. We believe our map fairly represents the community in that regard and doesn't essentially draw the line for political purposes, which I believe was done here. We also know that our proposed map keeps the 6th district intact, covering Skaneateles, Atisco, Marcellus, and points of the Camillus. Map number 1 drew a district that spans the entire width of Onondaga County and covers over 1/3 of the geographic area into a single legislative district. It doesn't account, no one is going to say that Skaneateles is like Lafayette, or is a common community to Lafayette. Anyone who looks at that, we know it doesn't pass the eye test, all right? We know why he's doing it that way. We know that he wants to disenfranchise rural voters, which is exactly the opposite of what our map does. There's absolutely no reason to connect Skaneateles to Lafayette. No reason, no viable reason. So if you look at our map, it's a fair map with respect to the southern district. If you look at Dustin's map, it cries out a bias and gerrymandering. Now, with respect to many of the city districts and with respect to many of the northern districts and the northwestern districts, honestly, the maps aren't that different. We have a lot of commonality. There's a lot of, there's obviously a big difference in the map that's been proposed, map number 2, that's been proposed today in comparison to the map that existed and was made, 10 years ago. We believe it's a fair map. We believe it brings people together, that it brings communities together, and that it's certainly the best representation of fair, one person, one vote, takes into account minorities, takes into account the city, takes into account the communities, and the common thread between communities. And we believe that our map is fair and reasonable and should be adopted. So, do you have any questions, Dustin?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I think sure.
Bring them up.
Microphone, please.
They were emailing.
You have a printed copy of the map to share with us today?
So you can take mine.
I do want to note
You can make copies.
that Chairman Hulslander has put us in a competitive disadvantage.
Is there a question?
Oh, I don't know.
Is there a question?
Mr.
Is that what-
Hulslander,
Can you please ask me?
you said that you would not interrupt me.
No,
I promise you, I
promise to
would
ask questions.
Okay.
Let's ask
The
them.
data that you submitted last night at 8:30 in PDF form is not the same as the map that is here today. Let me show you. In the data that you submitted last night, in the data that you submitted last night, late, against our agreement that we had, a gentleman's agreement to share those maps the day before so we could have an equal opportunity to look at it. You had DeWitt 17 in District 12. Was that changed overnight?
I don't believe so.
Well, it's here in your spreadsheet. So is the spreadsheet wrong that you submitted?
We'll update the spreadsheet.
Oh, okay. Well, while you're updating, you also have 6-4 listed twice. Now, since the election district 6-4 can only exist in one reality, I assume it's in either District 8 or District 9. Which one would that be?
Do you know?
Who drew that? I thought you did, Mr. Hulslander.
I assisted.
You assisted.
Darcy.
There's some tweaks that have been made to the map since.
Okay. After tweaks were made to our map, we provided that data to the entire committee. Why was that data not provided to the entire committee?
It will be.
It will be. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we have.
So let's talk about your map, Mr. Hulslander, which you did not talk about all the way. I want you to talk about mine. Now I'm going to talk about yours. What was the reason to split the town of DeWitt into 4 different districts
Again,
when they only have 26,000 representation?
and come up.
Absolutely reasonable.
Oh, what's the reason? If it's reasonable, give it to me.
Absolutely reasonable.
I'm willing to hear your reasons for it. What are
The town of DeWitt
We
is,
didn't do
the
Camilla's
town of
again.
DeWitt, as we propose it, is proposed within without all town
Give
communities.
me one reason to divide the town of DeWitt into 4 districts. I'll wait all day for the answer if you can give it to me. You don't have it. Okay. Let's move on. Why is the town of Salina? Well, we talked about the wrapping around the lake. I totally disagree with your stance. But why did you take one ED from Salina and put it into a Clay district when you say that the town of Clay is growing so much? Why did you do that?
Because it was reasonable under the circumstances that told.
Just saying it's reasonable, sir, without giving a reason is not reasonable.
If you look at the population, it's totally consistent with population growth, our map. Totally consistent. Yours is not.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get to that.
You ignore the population growth.
So I did, actually, we showed a density chart in our presentation, and I think the data will bear that out. But why did you split up the town of Camillus into 3 different districts? It only has 26,000 people. Why did you do that?
Again, it was reasonable based on our evaluation of the population.
What's your evaluation of the population?
The evaluation, we know the town of Camillus is also growing.
All of our towns are growing, except for the
No,
rural
not all
towns.
of them are growing.
Except for the rural
Not all of
towns.
them are growing. But we
Except
don't-
for the rural towns.
You need to draw the lines consistent with the population, where the population grows. That's where you draw the line.
I don't think that's where you're going to lie to. Because I think what you've done is you've created a Republican Party. And here's how I will explain it. Now, I only have the data, and it's incomplete and inconsistent, and there's errors in it, as has been stated by Ms. Leslie, who I assume helped you. It's nice to have a staff. But these districts that you drew, 10 of the 17 districts that you have drawn are more Republican than the districts that came before. Did you know that?
I didn't even consider, I don't think
No,
that's true.
oh, you didn't consider it.
I don't think it's true, but I didn't even think about.
It is true, I don't-
didn't look at Republicans. You know why? Because you did.
I
know
did.
You looked at what was Democratic.
No, I looked at
You
geographic
put a big
lines.
slide up.
All right, Mr. Hulslander, I looked at
There's nothing-
geographic lines.
This has
that
nothing
were
to do with
unreal,
Democratic
but
versus Republican.
I did the math last night, and I could not make sense of this map, and I don't think the public can either. Because it goes
No
on.
comment,
Well, if I can finish, and now
You're
you're
not
not
asking questions. All you're doing.
I did ask a question, you just
is-
say reasonable.
Is a speech.
I asked how you get 10 districts that are more Republican than the previous maps, when a population in Onondaga County has gained, the Democratic population has gained by 10% over the last 10 years?
First of all, that's not true, number one. Number two is, as I said during my presentation, the growth is in 4 towns. 63% of the population growth is in those 4 towns, and we accommodated for that.
Okay, but you didn't.
It's not about school districts, Dustin. It's about population growth.
I imagine the people who said it was kids.
We know that.
It's a little different. But, you keep saying that you gave 4 districts to the town of Clay, and you did. But one of those districts is that single ED